What does wealth mean to you? Is it a swanky car, a beautiful mansion, plenty of exotic holidays, or just that feeling of living rather than just surviving? Well, as a wealth creator, I know that wealth comes in many guises, but ultimately, wealth is how you reflect wealth inside. So welcome to the 5 proven keys of a multi-million-pound lifestyle. Hi, my name is Naomi Sesay, and what you're about to discover is how one woman created herself into a multi-millionaire from absolutely nothing. That woman is Jill Fielding, property mogul, business guru, a secret millionaire, a public speaker, and a mum. I asked her the all-important questions on how to become a multi-millionaire. And in this film, you're going to be introduced to the most critical factors. So grab a pencil and a paper and take note, because the answers that you will hear might surprise you.
Wealth means to me a variety of things, and as I get older and more experienced, my definition of wealth changes. And when I do my own wealth creation weekends, I always ask people at the very beginning, what is your definition of wealth? And inevitably, when people first start studying the subject, they say something like £2 million or £70,000 or whatever it may be. It generally is a material definition, but by the end of 3 days or whatever time they're working with me, inevitably the definition changes to something that's much more holistic and definitely something much more emotional. And for me, I started off in life thinking that wealth was £1 million, and then you get £1 million and you still get headaches, you still got to take the kids to school, and there's still rubbish on the telly. So I realised that having £1 million wasn't very meaningful. And as I've become more experienced in the field, my definition of wealth is this: it's the sense of enough. It's having enough love, enough money, enough kids, enough in your life such that you're not constantly trying to achieve something that's difficult. And it's a sense of complete satisfaction and everything feels complete. So the definition of wealth for me is one word: enough.
As the saying goes, enough is enough. But how much exactly is enough? Before we go on, I'd like you to write down your definition of wealth. Go on, do it now. Wealth comes in many shapes and colors and could be absolutely anything. In fact, it could be your social life, it could be your family, it could be your health, and of course, it is money. Think about growing a beautiful fruit tree. One has to seed it, nurture it, and then cultivate it. It's exactly the same with wealth. The seed is your idea, and that needs to be nurtured with good, solid wealth habits.
Interestingly enough, I always had it. And even though I was born in the East End of London with no physical money, or very little money, I actually started to create wealth habits for myself as a very young child. So as a 7-year-old, 6-year-old, I would actually hide money in books and play games with it and look at the money in the book, hidden in the book. So I always felt, as a very young child, incredibly abundant, because a £5 note to a 7-year-old is a huge amount of money. And every time I collected more money, saved it from aunties and that kind of thing, I'd put the money in these books. And so I always felt hugely overwhelmed and surrounded by wealth. And as I got older, that manifested itself into regular savings in building societies and so on. So I always felt the enough thing, wasn't really conscious of it. And then when I got to 16, 17, 18, I actually did have 4 jobs in one day. You know, I worked very hard, but always the sea of abundance was flowing in my favour. You know, there was huge amounts coming in, relatively, you know, like £4,000 a year, and only £500 going out. So I was always positively accumulating money, and even at those low levels, you know, if that's the situation you're in, you feel abundant. I mean, now I'm at the stage, obviously, where, you know, $1 million might come in, but it's, you know, I've always been wealthy.
So did you hear what Jill said? Positively accumulating wealth. Underline it, circle it, and highlight it. One must have a very strong belief system about obtaining wealth in the first place. So maybe one of the first keys is looking back at our past to find out how we've been conditioned around the topic of money. So here's the first of our keys of proven wealth.
The key is, I think, first of all, you have to go further back than that. Most people come on my wealth weekends not knowing they have a negative belief about money. And I think the first key is to understand what your belief might be. And that is very difficult for some people. So the first learning step is for people to acknowledge that their beliefs about money are probably manifesting their behaviours towards money, and therefore are manifesting their actions they take when money is concerned. So I have, for example, a belief, positive belief, negative belief inventory, and I get people to read this huge list of what money might mean and ask them to recognise what beliefs hit home to their heart. So, for example, I've got a positive belief that I believe with passion, and that is I love the inland revenue. Now, most people read that and know for certain that they don't believe that, and of course that might indicate some negative belief about money. I mean, that's an extreme example, but we have things like people refer to money as filthy lucre. The love of money is the root of all evil, and if you believe those things, you will never be wealthy. So the first step is to understand and to accept that your beliefs about money might be affecting your behaviours. Then I ask people to understand what those beliefs might be, and we do that in two ways. First of all, the belief inventory, which people can read and see which knocks them internally. The other thing I ask people to do is to write down for a couple of months how they react when a money event happens to them. So, for example, if they have a job with a salary, when the salary is paid, do they think, hurrah, I've been paid again? Or do they think, oh, that's miserable, I've not been paid enough? Do they think, wow, got away with it again, you know, and I've got another month's salary, when really I'm not giving anything to it? And when people go through a financial transaction, they do actually exhibit some emotional behaviour. And the second step then is to record what that reaction is. You know, do I feel relief, happiness, sadness, resentment? And that again can drive people to look at what their beliefs might be.
At the end of the day, you might be walking around with somebody else's belief system, which prevents you from creating wealth, and you don't even know it. Money is good. No, money is evil. Money is so easy to come by. Actually, money is really hard to get. You have to work hard for your money. Actually, money works hard for you. Money is just energy. Money is matter. Money is positive. Money destroys lives. So if belief creates money and money creates belief, which one comes first? Belief or money?
What a fantastic question that is, because I've searched around the which comes first, you know, the belief or the money thing for probably 25 years. And the answer is, I've come to the conclusion, it doesn't really matter which comes first. I think for most people, having just a shred of belief gives them enough motivation to start accumulating money. It's very much more common for people to have money but no belief to keep it. So I think probably if I fell off the fence, which you're asking me to do, I would say the belief has to come first and then the money. But most people believe the money has to come first. Most people think, oh, I've got to accumulate money and then I can behave in an abundant way. I think perhaps it's not as clear-cut as that.
No, it's not as clear-cut as that, because wealth education is highly important. So here's key number 2.
The factors people need to have to control income and expenditure flow, I always boil down into 2 categories. One is the actual information and the how you become wealthy, and that's having a knowledge of things like compounding, pound cost averaging, and let's say the more technical aspects, which people are often quite fearful of, which is why the other half, the other category, is so important, and that's the belief. In the belief that you can understand and you can manifest and you can control the flow, because most people are born thinking that wealth is not a possibility for them and they don't believe that they can manifest wealth, whereas I believe with a total passion you can. Anybody has the choice to manifest wealth at any stage in their life. Don't have to be young, old, whatever it may be. You can manifest it, but you have to believe in it. You have to believe in wealth flows. And I always say again, it's like maths. For a long, long time, I believed I was bad at maths. And what was I? I was absolutely bad at maths. And even as an adult, the night before I started to train as an accountant, I sat at home crying because I couldn't work out percentages on my calculator because I believed I was bad at maths. And I think most people believe they're bad at money. They believe that they're not worthy of money, they believe that it isn't possible, they believe that they can't generate it, they believe that they'll never understand it. And that's partly engendered by our society and partly an inner thing. So for me, having a positive belief to money and loving money, having fun with money, all of that creates a positive emotion into which money can then flow. So it's a two-edged thing.
And speaking of edges, I remember once when Jill said to me that if I stood over her edge, she would push me just to see me fly. And I did. So what is the mindset of a female multimillionaire?
I think I have the best of every possible world because I can, if I want to, be fairly ruthless and I can be fairly hard-nosed on the technical side of the wealth creation. I can have businesses and do have businesses. I can learn how to trade equities, I can learn how to invest in property, I can learn all of these things. But on the other hand, I also have the concept of being able to ask for information, which I think men traditionally are not so good at. I'm also much better at accumulating support around me from other people. And I don't know if you know, but statistically, even men prefer to talk to a woman about money, which is why we need so many more women independent financial advisors, for example, because men too prefer to talk to a woman about it. The other thing that a woman's innate character tends to have that a man does not, and I'm not generalising here, but statistics will bear me out, women will tend to follow a formula much better. And I liken it to having a recipe for wealth. Women will look at the recipe and chuck in all the bits and stir it out and produce the wealth. Men, I found, and statistics will bear me out, they'll look at a recipe and chuck all the ingredients in, but they might say, I'll put a bit more of this, a bit less of this. They're much more willing to experiment with the recipe, with the formula. Therefore, they're much more likely, I guess, to be hugely wealthy up one end, but they're also much more likely to be down the poor end too. So women are much better at following the formula of wealth creation. And if we take equity investing, for example, there are lots of strategies out there where there's actually a formula you follow in terms of equity manipulation. You know, you buy when the PE ratio is such and such, or above this or below that. A woman will follow the formula much, much better, and statistically, women make better and more successful equity investors than men.
So do you have a formula for wealth? What is your strategy? In fact, after you've watched this film, what will be your first steps to creating wealth? And remember, every single woman at any age has the capacity to attain a multi-million pound status.
Absolutely, I believe that so passionately. And I believe that wealth is not a one-size-fits-all t-shirt. Let's get that on the table. People create wealth in whatever way suits them. And some people are very aggressive with it, some people are very conservative with it, and every single way is right because it's right for them. Now, some people, I'm what I call, or at least I used to be, a squirrel. So I started when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, up to into my teens, early 20s, and it was all chipping away. It was tiny little bits of money. You know, do you know £1.85 a day will generate you £1 million by the time you're 65, if you start when you're 18. So that would be an advocation of a long-term, gentle formula. On the other hand, we know that property doubles every 7 to 8 years. So if you're starting in your 30s, you know, maybe property is a good thing for you to get into because you could double your money by the time you're 40. If property does double every 7 to 8 years, let's say, you can still start when you're 60 and still double your money by the time you're 70. So there is a course open to everybody, however old they are, on whatever they're doing. The younger you start, the better, because you can hear that. You can start with £1.85 a day when you're 18. Now, if you started that when you were 30, 40, 50, you're not going to generate your £1 million. But actually, you might. But well, you know, maybe there's ways that you can do that. I think, in summary, the answer to that question is the bigger the wealth you want to create and the quicker you want to create it generates bigger steps you have to take. When you're creating small amounts of wealth or wealth over a long time, you can take tiny steps and careful steps, and maybe you have to take bigger risks maybe, or more controlled risks when you're older.
Becoming a millionaire is not just about strategies. Those technical sides of wealth are easy to obtain and they are rudimentary. The most important part about creating wealth is your state of mind. Imagine your lifestyle and imagine that it's already happened. When you feel it and experience it as though it's already happened, that's when your wealth starts to manifest. Here's key number 4.
It doesn't really matter whether you believe totally at the beginning that you can be wealthy. I think some people are better at faking it than others, and you come into that spectrum wherever you fit. Certainly if you come into the wealth creation arena not having a belief at some level that you can be wealthy, I think you have to learn to fake it, and you can do that really easily. I started this when I was, like 18. I couldn't afford decent clothes, matching shoes and bag and posh perfume and everything at that time. So what I used to do, I used to hire an outfit, and I used to go to Boots or another big chemist and think, right, okay, what smells most abundant to me? Oh, that one, oh yeah, shh, have a good old spray up of what I smelt abundant. And then I'd go to a posh hotel and I'd sit there with posh china having a cup of tea that cost me like $2.95. So I'd probably spent about a fiver on the whole escapade. But I'd sit there thinking to myself, oh, I'm so worthy of this, I'm so believing that I'm wealthy, and just feeling and exuding that abundance. And we all know, fake it till you make it, girl. Just keep faking it there until it is a behaviour, and it does manifest itself. When you are in that state of abundance and state of flow, things come to you that you're not normally exposed to. And again, another analogy that I use quite regularly is the concept of somebody not having very much money. If you imagine that I had £2 coins in my hand now, I've got £1 in each hand. Most people, what they do with their money is they clench their fists very tightly around the money that they have, because they have an inner fear that it will go, that they will lose it. So most people are holding whatever money they have very tightly in clenched fists. When your fists are clenched like that, if £50 notes fell from the ceiling as I'm sitting here, I could not catch any because my hands are clenched around my £1 coins. If I have my hands open, accepting that the pound coins may come and they may go, when the £50 notes fall from the ceiling, some are going to land in my open hand, and I'm going to have an awful lot more money. And I know for sure that that relaxed attitude to wealth, the fact that it will come and go, is about learning the responsibility for money. And when the hands are open, when the heart is open, when the psyche is open to receiving money, it comes at you like a train. And when you're really open to it, there are so many opportunities that flow to you that it's almost overwhelming. And so much money comes that you then have to up your belief side of your scales to then cope with all of this abundance that's coming to you. So it's a really exciting thing. And I know I've got loads of examples where I've been able to manifest checks coming through the door because I needed them at that time. And I know you'll have examples of your own there, that if the belief and the emotion is strong, the money will follow, and the money does. Sometimes I liken it to energy, because some people say all money is energy, like you and I are energy sitting here today. And if your energy, we know that energy is positively attracted and negatively repelled. If I am sitting here full of positive energy about money, I like it, I love it, I think it's funny, I enjoy it, we have a real party with money. If money is just energy, it's much more likely to come to me than another person who's sitting there reviling it, scared of it, fearful, unhappy with it, and all of those things. So a positive energy about money does attract money, for sure.
And that leads me very nicely to the subject of instinct and intuition. Ask any wealth creator you know, and they'll tell you that instinct and intuition plays a large part in creating megabucks.
For me, in the early days, I probably concentrated on the how very strongly. As I've become more successful and very much more wealthy, I know with total conviction that the instinct is probably the biggest single influencer. Small amounts of wealth, £500,000, whatever it may be, can come certainly with a mathematical approach. But big amounts of wealth, more positive wealth, more abundant wealth, comes with following instinct, belief, passion and mission.
So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of creating wealth. I asked Jill what were the factors that made her consciously create wealth, and this is what she said.
I think for me, I was lucky enough to be very independent very early on. I did not have a close-knit family, so I was left very much alone. I was a latchkey kid, sitting there with my fivers in the book, looking at them. So I was very much alone very early on. So when I wanted to go to further education, when I wanted to go to university, I knew I had to work out a way of doing it myself. And what I did was I actually had 4 jobs for about 15 months, and I worked for Customs and Excise, and they paid me the huge sum of like $4,500 a year. And I managed to save it all because I was doing these other jobs. I was pulling pints in the pub, I was delivering leaflets, cleaning toilets, doing all the stuff that I needed to do, such that I could go to university and have enough money to survive for 3 years. And the money I saved was enough to buy me a semi-detached little house. So I had my accommodation needs covered. And then whilst I was at university, I did all the jobs again, working in a coffee bar and so on, to get me through university. And by the time I finished university, my house had quadrupled in value, and I had a stock of money in the bank because I'd worked the whole time. Outgoings very low, income very high. I've always driven multiple sources of income.
So there it is, key number 5. In fact, in this day and age, it's not possible to create wealth with just one income stream. According to Barclays Wealth, 53% of all millionaires by 2020 will in fact be women. The question is, will it be you? If the answer is yes, then you have to learn how to create multiple streams of income.
For me, I always compare money to the flow of water. It's an analogy that I like and I believe in passionately. Most people have money or water flowing throughout their lives. Unfortunately for most people, what happens is everything that flows into their bath, let's say, also flows out. And most people have got several dense holes in their bath where everything runs out all the time. For me, the analogy of the bath is this: let's have just one controlled outlet which we can stop when we need to, but as well as having just one inflow, which would be the tap in this particular case, I also think, well, let's have a shower attachment. Let's throw in buckets of spare water. Let's have this huge Charlie Dimmock water feature flowing into the bath. And it's about having lots of different flows into your life and a controlled outflow. And that's what I think the Sea of Abundance is about. It's money coming in and money ebbing and flowing the whole time. And it's being relaxed with that and knowing that at any time you can control the flow in and the control out. And that's what the analogy is about for me.
So Jill, spill the beans. What is the quickest way to create wealth?
I have a 3-lane system, and again, it's another analogy. I deal very much in pictures. I'm not one for concentrating for long or having complicated theories. Mine is the motorway of wealth, and it's this. What happens is we all go onto the access road of the motorway, and in the access road we sort out things like the scales of abundance, the income and expenditure flows. We might also prepare ourselves for wealth in terms of maybe debt restructuring, maybe looking at mortgages, looking at pensions, looking at that kind of stuff. Then we get onto the motorway of wealth itself, and being on the motorway is about invested in 3 separate areas, and that's land and property, equities or other assets, which is shares, maybe art, lots of different things there, and then in the 3rd lane it's being invested in businesses. Now, land and property is still statistically in the UK the most common form of wealth generation, and if you look at any list of the most wealthy people, most people, the vast majority, will have got their money from property in some shape or form. So that's still a very positive form. Business caveat there is it's got to be passive income generating business, and I don't mean going to work for yourself for 90 hours a week, flogging yourself on your own in what I call a stitch one, bill one type of business, where you've actually got to be doing something in order to generate an invoice. For me, business is about implementing passive income generating formulas of wealth where money can flow to you day, night, whether you're awake or asleep or whatever you're doing.
And talking about businesses, how does one create passive income through a business? Doesn't one have to get their back into it?
A passive income business, let's take one that everybody will know, and that's McDonald's. A fascinating story there. The McDonald's brothers themselves had what I call is a perfect formula. They had one hamburger joint in America. Ray Kroc happened to be a salesman who sold milkshake machines. And on his list of people, his customers, he realised that there was this one hamburger joint called McDonald's, and they had 6 milkshake machines. So he decided to go down there because these must be really good customers. Now what happened, he went down there and he saw that they had a formula. They had a set way of doing something, they had a set size of burger, they had predetermined cooking times and so on. He saw that and thought, this is the most amazing passive income generating business I have ever seen. And so he convinced them to roll out that formula across the world. Now it didn't happen very quickly obviously, and it wasn't as easy as it sounds, but at the end of the day, Ray Kroc and the McDonald's brothers were sitting there in America passively generating business across the whole world, in terms of, because they'd sold their formula for making the hamburger, there were hamburger joints in London, Moscow, Sydney, Australia, wherever, and they were getting a proportion of that money. Perfect passive income business. What they had was a formula which they then sold on for everybody else. Another interesting twist to the story, when Ray Kroc first met the McDonald's brothers, he was 52, diabetic, and had not had a very successful life. So don't tell me you can't start at the age of 52 and become wealthy, because you damn well can. Look at Ray Kroc.
Well, that's telling it like it is. Systemize your business and then work on it instead of working in it. Got it? Well, I've got one last wealth nugget from our secret millionaire, Jill Fielding. Like all wealth creators, she has a secret strategy up her sleeve, and I wanted to know what it was. So pay close attention.
First of all, I'd say learn to think creatively. Secondly, put £1.85 in a tin today, or a box, or a tea caddy, or on the shelf. Collect those £1.85s for a month and then put them into a FTSE 100 tracker savings vehicle. Now that's very easy to find. You go onto the website Investors Management Association, the IMA, and just type in tracker fund. It will give you a list. You get a pin, you pick one at random, and that £1.85 a day that you've been saving up, put it into the tracker fund. Now, after time, that will generate £1 million. So that's a very easy tip that people can get started with today. The next thing they can do is do something fun with money. You know, dress up. One of the things I do, if I have a mortgage, I draw myself a big chart and I put years across the top, months down the side, and I create a matrix. And then every time my mortgage payment goes out, I go in and I colour in another box, and I have fun and I enjoy doing that. So wherever people are, they can do something today. They can do 3 things today. They can read Jill's Gems, they can put their £1.85 into a tea caddy or a box or something somewhere, and they can think of a game they can play with their current financial circumstance that gives them some fun and makes them laugh about money. I mean, if nothing else, sit there and pay your bills in the nude and laugh at yourself, because if you're laughing about money, you're being positive about money, you're creating positive, fun energy, and it will start to flow.
Don't just sit on that information, ladies. Go out and do it. Wealth is your responsibility. And at the end of the day, there are many reasons why you'd want to create wealth in the first place. Here's Jill's.
I think contribution is the only thing that motivates me now, in all honesty. Everything I do from even sitting here to some of the seminars that I run, the books that I write, everything that I do is about giving out the message. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about having wealth, because when I was young, I came from this very, very poor background in the East End of London. Most of my extended family are still in the East End of London with nothing. But what I'm able to do now, because I put all the money seeds in place 20 or 30 years ago, I can now sit here and give my time for free. I can give to people. I actually support, I think, 11 separate people completely financially. I have a handicapped brother, and I can ensure that he has the most wonderful life that he can live, because I'm now able to give back. I'm able to do seminars for free in some cases. I'm able to go out speaking the word, spreading the message. And really, that's what it's all about. It's then that you realise that there's more to life than just having money. It's again the sense of having enough, because when you have enough and you believe that there is enough for everybody, you're willing to share and you're willing to give to everybody, because you know that there is enough for everybody.
So you've heard it from the horse's mouth. Well, Jill Fielding's in any case. The 5 proven keys to a multi-million-pound lifestyle with Jill Fielding. So ladies, it's over to you. You can sit there and do absolutely nothing, or you can create phenomenal wealth. So until next time, to your success. If you're interested in creating huge wealth for yourself or in any of our workshops or seminars, please go to www.globalinfinity.co.uk. That's www.globalinfinity.co.uk. Or email us at info@globalinfinity.co.uk.